everyone assumes, I think probably Jed York included, that next year they're going to make him a very, very rich man, and they're not going to really play hardball with him. It's going to be like, remember when they gave Jimmy Garoppolo a contract? He had 5 starts, and they're like, here's a 6-year contract that makes you the highest paid player in the league. It was what, like, it was a $27 million. What was it? $27 million a year. So this will be probably, we're expecting, here's a 6-year contract, $300 million, $50 million a year or more. Who knows what the figures will be? Just because, like, do they have to do that? Like I just said, I don't think any other team in the league is saying he'd be better with us than he is with the Niners. Couldn't the Niners lowball him? Like, be like, I'm sorry, this is business. Here's a 3-year deal worth,
I mean,
let's say $90 million.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
To me,
who's going to pay you more than that? What team is going to say, let's give Brock $40 million a year? If the Niners couldn't win a Super Bowl with him, making nothing, you're going to win the Super Bowl with Brock, and you don't have Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey? Like, can't they lowball him? Is he really? Do they need to give him $50 million a year? Is that so wrong to say? It's business.
I think it's what is being said. Probably, like, the reality is, if Brock Purdy comes out here and balls out this year and gets better than he was last year, then maybe you can make that point. So that's a possibility. But I mean, it cripples your team if you pay a guy like that, and he's not top 5. If he's not an elite quarterback, and you pay him like that, you're crippled for years. And so they have to make sure that he is that guy.
Brock, we want to keep you. Here's $30 million a year. That's a lot of money. It's up there with Trent Williams and the highest paid. Not quite Nick Bosa, but it's a lot of money. We're not going to make you the highest paid player in the team. You're not our best player. You're not an elite quarterback. Kyle's helping you a lot, and you're helping Kyle. But no, we're not just going to give you $50 million a year just because that's the market rate. Like, if they do that and he's not truly an elite quarterback, and I have my questions, they're in trouble in a few years. They got to be really careful here, and I don't see why. I mean, they're playing hardball with Ayuk, right? I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If they're going to play hardball with Ayuk, why not play hardball with Purdy too? It's in the best interest of your organization.
I think. I mean, what you're saying isn't wrong, but I'm just wondering. That's why he has an agent. His agent might be like, "What's his?" I mean, they could franchise tag him, right, or give him the 4th-year option. What are their options with him?
Franchise tag him. They can franchise tag him. I mean, they could say, "Hey, play out your contract. What are you going to do? You're under contract for 2025, also."
Yeah, and this is why I brought up earlier. It's a big year for a lot of players, and one of them, the biggest one probably, is Brock Purdy, because he could go out and earn that, justify that this year based on how he plays, or could make the Niners pause, right? Like, hey, this guy hasn't gotten any better. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes the season exciting. What I will say for Brock is that he seems like the kind of guy that will fight and grind to be better. And we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see. All right, man. Oh, I got some super chats. Actually, I need to get to. My bad, man. I'm not used to dealing with a million super chats. Only when I dual stream with Grant, man. And I'm in the major leagues. Where are we at? Stephen Pryor says, I have a feeling Debo or Juwan will be traded before camp. It'll probably have to be a player for player. Is there a trade for either of them that you guys would like to see? Specific player?
Before
I trade Debo for DeJuan Jones, who I wanted last year from the Browns.
An offensive lineman. Yeah, that'd be great. I like that. Yeah. Or a tight end. Isaiah Likely, the tight end for the Ravens, would be cool too.
Yeah.
I don't see him getting traded before camp. I think one of them could get traded at the trade deadline if they're not getting enough targets and they're disgruntled and they request a trade or something like that. But I think the Niners have made it pretty clear they want to keep their team as competitive as possible for this year.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they trade either one.
I don't think they will.
Definitely not.
Maybe you're right, Steven. I don't know.
Maybe Juwan, I could see, maybe. Right? Like,
it just reminds me. Remember when the Niners were flirting with the idea of trading Jimmy? Like, we're going to trade him. We're going to trade him. But we really like him. And we're only going to trade him for a lot. It's like, how can you say you really like Jimmy when you already traded up for Trey Lance? Like, you don't like Jimmy. but they never traded him. They just held on to him, and he finally left.
That's what they did with BA and Debo this season. They were open to trading both of those guys.
Yeah.
Like that's a actual fact.
But
it's just they wanted so much more than they could have got. It's almost like, why even put that out there then? If you wanted a ridiculous amount for these guys, why put it out there? Because it just funks with your dynamics. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure it was the other teams to try to put a little pressure on the Niners. Like, look, everyone knows you're chopping these guys. You can't.
Well, I mean, assess yourself is what I'm saying. Like, assess your situation. Like, you understand that you value these guys more than anyone else and don't even entertain it because you're not going to get it. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Marcos, can you see the 49ers passing to Rock more? Brock throwing 30+ a game. Do you think both Elijah and Mason traded missed the 53-man, Isaac, RB2, Cody, RB3? That's a lot in there. We talked about him passing more. I think they're going to pass more. And I think Brock's going to be more aggressive, but I don't think they're going to change their identity and become a pass-first team.
I mean, in 2016, Kyle had his great year as an offensive coordinator with that record-setting offense in Atlanta. I think they ranked 26th in pass attempts that year. And they had Julio Jones. So it's just not how he calls games. It's not how they're built. It's not how he calls games. I'd be so shocked if they were top half of the league in pass attempts and winning. That would be a function of losing for him. That's how he calls games when he's losing.
Yeah, interesting. The second one, do you think Elijah would be cut and Mason traded, missed the 53? I have Elijah on the trade list. Him and Ambry Thomas are guys that I could see potentially being traded. I don't think Mason gets traded or cut.
I think they keep forward tailbacks. I think Elijah makes it. I think Mason makes it. I think Garendo makes it.
Yeah. I'm not saying I know Elijah's going to be traded or he will be, but if anyone gets traded, I could see it being Elijah or Ambry. Those are guys I have.
I can see that. I can see Ambry getting traded because that's I think it's been documented. That's an Adam Peters guy, and the Niners coaching staff has benched him so many times. I could see him getting traded to Washington.
And Jawan Jennings it could, I guess. Now you bring him, he brought him up. It kind of makes sense if they want to go with Pearsall. But I mean, Jawan was so clutch for them, and he was about to be the MVP of the Super Bowl. They probably don't do that.
He has an actual connection with Brock Purdy. I don't see why you would mess with that. You don't know. Brock Purdy's never thrown Pearsall a pass, even in practice.
Yeah, and he does things that beyond playing receiver, like his blocking, the way he sets the tone. He's a prick in the side of the defenses too.
Agree.
Which is great.
But I think what's underrated about Jawan, he didn't get enough credit for it, and I think it's unique for him on this team, is how tall he is, how big he is, and how big his catch radius is. Because like the number one pass on the Niners is that play action pass over the middle, 15 yards. They do it all the time. That's the most important route you got to run. That's the most important pass in the playbook. And he can really catch that ball. With guys around him, he can jump up. He can make one-handed catches. Like you kind of can't miss throwing that pass to Jawan Jennings. But I think it's the most important route. It's the most important pattern. He runs it to perfection. He's got to be here. In fact, I'd even think about re-signing. That's why I still don't understand the Pearsall pick. Like you wanted to upgrade at slot receiver. He's a great slot receiver for you. What are you talking about? Jawan is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they've paid a third receiver since they've been here, right? They always let him go when it's time.
True. Well, they're doing their best to suppress his market value by giving him 19 catches a season.
Yeah, and that's what makes me wonder, like, why is Pearsall here? I think he's here for the future. Honestly, I think he'll get a little bit scattered
in a year.
Yeah, Juwan in a year, and I don't.
Debo in 2.
Debo, yeah. That's why they drafted those guys. I don't think it's because they're going to all of a sudden have Brock Purdy out there like Tom Brady, throwing.
Because again, this team doesn't have to get better. In fact, it can't get better. It's the best. It's a 2-time Super Bowl championship team, technically, if you know ball, but they didn't actually get the rings because fluky things happen in football. So all they can do is just keep on keeping on and doing what they've been doing because it works. It worked. And if you don't believe the Niners, there are any number of journalists who will tell you that it's championship formula. It works.
Yeah, 49ers fans for life says, how many all-pro players does Kylie need to not blow a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl? More?
I don't know, man.
A little more. Corey says, I'm not saying Purdy is bad, but I insist if you look at any quarterback between 10 and 15 in the league, they do as well or better. I think it's hard when they're not on your team, right? Like some of the quarterbacks that we don't think are that good would be pretty damn good on this team, I think.
The knock with Brock is like, okay, well, he's really having success, but he can't do the most difficult things that really elite quarterbacks can do. Like you can find clips of Jordan Love scrambling to his left, throwing against his body, making these dart throws 30 yards downfield. Like the really, really difficult stuff that quarterbacks have to do just a few times a season. Brock can't do that. But on the Niners, you don't have to. The throws are mostly short and intermediate. They're mostly to guys who are open and mostly to guys who are all pros and get you big yards after the catch. Like you still have to be good at your job, but compared to other teams, other quarterbacks, other systems, you're not asked to do a lot of highly difficult stuff. The most difficult things you're asked to do is avoid some sacks here and there because you're not going to have great pass protection. But a lot of times you'll have an all-pro running back going one way while you boot out the other way, and the whole defense is looking at him, and it's like there's a lot of easy open throws in this offense, as any Niners fan knows. So it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what the quarterback is responsible for when you look at his numbers at the end of the game.
You did bring up a good point about avoiding sacks, though. I think he's hiding this line a little bit because he is mobile. Well, Jimmy would have gotten at least 10, 15 more sacks.
He just tried to do it with his quick release, just get rid of the ball. But Brock can actually extend plays, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing about Brock. And I had no idea he could do that because you don't do that stuff really in practice. He started doing it in games with confidence and not even second guessing it. It's really, I think it's the most surprising thing about him. Maybe you shouldn't be surprised if you watch him in college. I didn't watch him that much in college. I just saw him in practice.
My favorite quarterback of all time is Steve Young. And what I love about him is mobility. I didn't want him to be a running quarterback, but a quarterback that could scramble and create. And Brock should probably run more. And what's funny is Brock said the two things he's working on are velocity because he wants to add more velocities to his arm, which is something I was concerned about. And people got mad at me for being concerned about it. It sounds like Brock's concerned about it. And he's working on it. Not concerned, but wants to improve it. And then the other thing he said was improve his mobility, which I've never been concerned about with Brock, but I find it interesting that he wants to improve his mobility. And if he does, he could be even dangerous. I would like to see Brock run more as long as he is protecting himself.
Yeah, like I don't need him to be like more mobile. Like I don't know how he can do that, but he can be. He can use his legs more often. He can be more decisive. He can leverage that part of his game more. Because really, I feel like the biggest difference between him and Mahomes in the Super Bowl was scrambling. Mahomes ran for 9 times for 66 yards in the game, including his 22-yarder. And in some really key moments, he got first downs with his legs when Purdy did that earlier in the playoffs. But in this game, he had 12 yards rushing. I think that needs to be a bigger part of the Niners offense in his game because if Mahomes is going to do that and be the best quarterback, like you can't outplay him without doing that. In my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think you can.
If there's one real position he's elevating as a quarterback, it's the offensive line. He actually is when you think about it. So maybe that's the justification for paying him because you don't have to pay on O-line. They just make Brock's run for his life back there.
I mean, if teams are going to play man-to-man coverage, if that's the way to stop Brock Purdy, then he has to run. He has to make him pay with his legs because all those DBs are turning their back and chasing receivers.
Yeah.
So it's open.
Sorry, I went back. I almost skipped you, Michael. I apologize. It says plain and simple, you can't justify paying Brock $40 million a year, say Debo and Ayuk, and stay run first. Add that run first doesn't equal Super Bowl wins. Did I read that correctly, or am I
add to that?
Add to that.
Run first doesn't equal Super Bowl wins. Well, what you're saying is that Kyle's taking this team as far as he can, and that his system is good in the regular season, but it ultimately won't lead to a Super Bowl victory now. And I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. Like it worked with his dad a very long time ago when they had a Hall of Fame running back and a Hall of Fame quarterback. It worked, but it hasn't worked since.
You know, it's funny too is the 49ers are behind the trend a little bit with this because it feels like the wide receivers in the NFL are becoming running backs. Like what I mean by that is that you can find them pretty easily. Yep. And now they have the highest paid wide receiver room in the NFL when that's kind of the trend is to be the opposite.
Are they not the highest paid running back room too when you add in use check to it? I mean, I bet they're up there. I bet they're up there.
Which is weird because you can really like, you know, it seems he's amazing. He's great, but like really you should be spending your money on a quarterback if you have an elite one and your offensive line, defensive line, and the corners, right? And the
The
rest,
positions that are harder to find.
yeah,
That's why you pay, because you can't find a ton of good ones in the draft, but you can find a ton of good wide receivers and running backs in the draft. So why are you paying for guys who aren't I mean, like, no disrespect to Debo and Ayuk, they're not Hall of Fame wide receivers. They're very good wide receivers, and you're paying them like they're freaking Hall of Fame. Like, you can't live without them. Really? What? You just drafted another wide receiver. Like, there's going to be guys in round 3. Jacob Cowing might be really good. There are
yeah,
guys in rounds 2, 3, 4 every year that are really good.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like it's the trend, like how running backs don't get paid like they used to. I feel like wide receivers, even though it's not happening right now, but you're going to see more of it. I think if they continue to come out of draft as well as they have been, you're going to see just a bunch of wide receivers on rookie contracts, I think.
You got to remember too, like, a big thing with the Niners offense is, can you memorize Kyle's playbook? How long does it take you to learn it? And have you learned it? So if you're good and you know his playbook, that gives you a leg up. He's going to want to keep people around. He's going to want to keep Colton McKivitz around. Like, is Colton McKivitz good? No, but he's not that much worse than some rookie who could come in and not know the playbook. So at least Colton's cheap and knows the playbook and is, like, kind of good enough. Kind of. That gives him a huge leg up, and he'll be around for a while until the Niners have a true replacement who also knows the playbook. So you said it earlier with Pearsall. Is he here to play? No. He's here to learn the playbook. And when he does, there may be a role for him at that point.
That's what it seems like to me. Brother Bob made it. What's up, Brother Bob? Made it to Corona. Morning all. Problem with homers is that the Niners are always right and always best team, even when Niners are wrong and lose Super Bowls. Yeah, we talked about that earlier today. Shout out to Brother Bob. Harold McAllister, $10 super chat, says, I think they drafted wide receiver because they couldn't get open against man-to-man coverage. The games they lost were against good man defense, aka Brown Chiefs receivers. Do you believe that? I don't believe that. I think they're here to replace those guys, Harold. What do you think? I don't think they drafted Cowing and Pearsall because they're experts at getting open against man coverage. And in fact, that's kind of the knock on Pearsall so far. We'll see, but that's the knock. Do you agree, Grant? Or?
Well, it's interesting. I think he can beat man coverage, but the issue is press man. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you're going to give him a 9-yard cushion, he seems like he could be pretty tough because you can't really get your hands on him 10 yards downfield, and he is quick, and he is, like, a good route runner. Like, I'll give him all that. He is good at that stuff. So it might be kind of tough to handle him that way. But
Yeah.
if you can press him, he doesn't seem to have the strength or the quickness or the explosiveness or the elusiveness. He didn't have it in college. It showed up on film. The NFL draft profile is the first thing they mentioned in his weaknesses. And to me, it showed up in a non-padded 7-on-7 practice at rookie minicamp, not even against Travarius Ward, in, like, a real practice. So if you can press a guy and sort of take him out of your offense, then how good is he? Because the whole Niners passing game is built on timing. The ball comes out quickly. You got to be where you're supposed to be on time for the whole thing to work. And if you can get totally taken out in a second or two by a good press, I don't know, you can play. Or you can be like a gadget guy sometimes.
Yeah. And I think Pearsall, honestly, is a better route runner than Debo Samuel. So if that's what you mean, Harold, you're probably right about that.
I saw him run a real nice double move against Renardo Green when Green played off. It was really nice. It was a stutter go. He sold it. Green kind of grabbed him. It should have been a penalty. That was the best thing Pearsall did all day. It was nice. You should press him if you're going to face him. Otherwise, he might be tough to. He might be kind of tough to handle.
Correct. Marco says last year was our last chance. Is this true? Is this truly this year? Yeah, I mean, it is a better chance last year, I think, in my opinion. But it's the last chance with this group. I mean, one thing the 49ers have done is built a good roster. So maybe they can do it again. You know, maybe when these guys are all gone, they'll have replacements for them. But it's definitely the last chance with this group, I would say, in general, the whole.
If you think of the Niners as like a race car, they're a great race car. They have so many great pieces and parts in their engine and to optimize them. But one piece is getting kind of old. It's very important, and there's no replacement for it. And it's Trent Williams. Like, once that goes, the whole car is screwed. And when is that going to happen? He's 36 this year. He already misses 3 or 4 games this season. When that goes up and he starts going to Eric Armstead territory and is 8 or 9, what happens? They're not prepared for that. they haven't planned for it. They act like it's not going to happen. So I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, it just felt like last year, but that's why it was so disappointing for me. It felt like last year was the best year.